Welcome to Supply Chain Now, the voice of global supply chain. Supply Chain Now focuses on the best in the business for our worldwide audience, the people, the technologies, the best practices, and today's critical issues, the challenges and opportunities. Stay tuned to hear from those making global business happen right here on Supply Chain Now.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Scott Luton with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's show. Hey, today's show, this episode, we're going to be reconnecting with a global business leader doing big things, and especially in healthcare supply chain and beyond. Plus, she's a repeat guest, a beloved repeat guest. We love a repeat guest right here on Supply Chain Now. She made a big splash on a live stream with us. We think back in about 8 months ago, back in October 2020, especially with her POV on the critical topic of leadership, but not just leadership with a strong bias for action. That's what it's about. So stay tuned for an intriguing and informative conversation. Hopefully you'll enjoy as much as I will. A quick programming note: if you enjoy this episode, be sure to find Supply Chain Now and subscribe for free so you don't miss conversations just like this. Also, if you would love to earn your review, those reviews on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you get them, help us reach more people and share the POV you'll hear here today with many more around the global business world. So, all right, so no further ado, I want to bring in a special guest here today, Ramatu Abdulkadir, a supply chain professional and researcher at Liverpool John Moores University, but also she's a PhD candidate there at that academic university. So great to have Ramatu with us here today. Good afternoon, I guess. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Scott. I'm doing great, and it's so nice to reconnect with you again.
Vice versa. Really enjoyed. It's been too long, first off, but it's good to follow you via social, where you have got a big following, as you should. You got love your POV and love the work you do, and we're going to dive more into that momentarily. But man,
Thank you, Scott.
Working on your PhD as well, Ramatu. Always learning, huh?
Definitely have to keep ahead of the curve. We have to be prepared as professionals. We can't be caught unawares, even with COVID.
Yeah, excellent point. So, what we want to start is folks that caught maybe your earlier appearance or some of your other appearances on other podcasts and whatnot. They may know you already, but let's kind of refresh people's, in terms of who you are, Ramatu the person. Let's refresh our memory a bit. So tell us a little about yourself, where you grew up, and then maybe we talk about your 3 daughters too.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Always excited to discuss with you. So I'm Ramatu Abdulkadir, and I was born in Kaduna State, Northwest Nigeria. I went to a boarding high school in Federal Capital, Abuja. So because I left home really early for high school, that made me grow up fast because I learned early in life to be responsible for myself and make choices. So my days in school were very adventurous. My leadership journey started from high school. I was the head girl of my school, and it was a very huge responsibility, or so it seemed then. I was responsible for planning and executing all school activities.
Well, you read my mind what I was going to ask you about. So Ramatu, that you said the head what at school?
That's we call it head girl here.
Okay.
So that's I don't know the equivalent in America. I lead the entire student of the school.
Okay, like a student body president or something like that. Sounds like.
Okay, yeah, something like that.
So you led school activities, planned school activities. That might be a big theme for today's conversation. And if I heard you right, that was one of your earliest formal leadership positions. Is that right?
Definitely. That was my first formal leadership position. I was responsible for planning and executing all school activities. I had my own deputies and assistants that were helping out, ensuring that students are fed on time, at the right time, ensuring that afternoon siestas and night preps are held at the right time also. Also making sure that sick students are taken to the hospitals, games, inter-house and inter-school sports. Like literally taking care of everything about students. And it was really big for me because I was really small then. Yeah.
And making, I bet food quality was something you might have heard about regularly. You had to make sure that it was good food delivered on time, right?
Definitely. We have to. I have a food prefect. So for every activity, I have a prefect that helps out. I have a food prefect that reports to me and makes sure that everything is going on well in the dining room. I have a games prefect, you name it. I have all the prefects. It's like a government of its own, and everybody. I was also a very active academic student, engaging in debates, quiz competitions with other schools. I even got an award as the top 3 student in the federal capital. And
Wow.
so it was really very interesting days looking back for me.
So what you're telling me is you've always been an overachiever. You've always been an engaged leader. I mean, really, it's fascinating to kind of hear you describe that, your early days and early leadership days. And for me, who has been tracking what you've been doing, you know, even in recent days, and compare and contrast. It's the same person. And I bet you learned so much from that you still apply to this day. Let's shift gears a bit. I want to, so currently you're living and working in Nigeria, correct?
Yeah.
So what's your, what's your favorite part about living and working in the country of Nigeria? What do folks maybe not know about, the great market that is?
So living in Nigeria is really very interesting. There's no boring moment when you are living in Nigeria. It's a roller coaster ride, whether it's working on transformation of supply chains, or just plain old shopping and bargaining, or starting a business. You have to be ready at all times. So at one point I lived in Lagos, Nigeria, which is a very big city if you're familiar with Nigeria. And it was kind of crazy, if you ask me. The traffic, the people, and the just never ending cycle of activities keeps you on your toes. So after my undergraduate studies, I partnered with a friend and we started a business. That was my first official business in
Wow.
Lagos. So yeah, we started an agency providing services to people, such as people and institutions, such as catering services, laundry, security, secretarial services, babysitting services, you name it. We're just young graduates and we felt we could take on the world, and we started this business. So one day I paid a home call to one of my clients whom we had spoken over the phone,
Mhm.
and I provided her with what she needed, but we had never met. So I went for a home call, and she was taken aback when she saw me and asked, how old was I? Well, that wasn't what I was expecting. I was hoping to score more business because she worked with a large multinational company. I was hoping she could introduce me to her network. And so I just told her the first thing that came to my mind, like, okay, well, I'm old enough. I'm a graduate and all that. So she went on advising me about it, that why she's asking me is because this is Lagos and you look so young and you're into this big business. People will try to take advantage of you. You need to be careful and all that. So I appreciated her advice, very kind of her, but I also didn't take it for granted. I went back to my partner, who is a lawyer, and I told her what happened with the client. And we're like, okay, we need to get our documents. We worked more on our document, tied loose ends, and continue to learn on the business. So it's very insightful. So in Nigeria, very exciting things can happen. Some places are super, super busy, and others are a bit more quiet. Yeah.
Mm. So,
And then where you are.
so critical feedback that from that client that you put right into action. It seems like strengthening the business that you and your partner had founded.
Yeah,
So that's the power of feedback, right? Regardless if you're an entrepreneur or if
definitely.
you're work in different sectors or a big company, small company, the feedback that can be so powerful from not just your customers but also your suppliers, your colleagues, folks you work for, folks that work for you. The power of feedback can really be impactful, huh?
True. That's very true.
So
I even didn't know what she was talking about. I didn't fully comprehend what she was talking about then, but I still went back and we took actions. And a few months down the line, we actually understood what she was talking about. We ran into trouble with some clients and all that, but we're able to resolve it very quickly.
wonderful. All right. So speaking of feedback, I don't know about you. We're both parents. I get most of my feedback these days from all three of my kids, and whether I like it or not, it's constant. Tell us about Ramatu. Tell us about your three daughters and a little bit about maybe their personalities.
Yeah, so my first daughter is Sauda, and she's going on 16 now. And talking about feedback, I get so many unsolicited feedback from her. She's quite a mouthful, and she thinks now she can advise me and everything. And some few months back, she decided that she loved cooking and all that. She wanted to learn professional cooking. So, and we got her enrolled in a catering school, which she learned. And now she thinks my cooking is horrible. She complains about everything I cook. And I guess I'll just have to continue to live with that. And then, of course, Zara, my second daughter, she's going on 11. She's a bit quieter, more receptive. I would say she's more like me. And we get along really, really well. She's more level-headed. And during COVID, we all decided, okay, so what do you want to do? You need to learn something different from what you're doing. And Zara decided that she wants to be a fashion designer.
Wow.
She wasn't interested in cooking, so she wanted to design dresses and everything. And I also got her learning that, and we're going to have a Zara couture and all that. She's done some really nice dresses, also going on that. And then my third is Humaira. She's going on 10, and she is seemed to be more into drawings and paintings. And she's not really sure what she wants to be. She doesn't want to cook, and she doesn't want to be a designer. So we're still watching to see what's going to come out of that. But feedbacks, I get so many unsolicited feedbacks. Nobody listened to me in my house. they all think I should listen to them. So
I'm with you. And we're gonna look back on this one day and
yeah,
and wish we had it times three maybe. But I appreciate you sharing about all three of your daughters. And I love how you're really kind of researching their passions and then engaging them and finding avenues for them to explore that and dive deeper and develop their passion. So I love that. That really it's a kindred spirit with what we're trying to do with our three kids here. All right. So I want to shift gears now and you kind of shared some information around what you've done previously professionally. Let's talk about what you're doing right now from a professional standpoint, because you're doing a lot of research. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely.
And
So
listeners, and Ramatu, I want to, pardon me for interrupting. I want to just share with our listeners. Don't let the word research have you unplugged from this next segment, because it's more exciting than even you can imagine. So with that preface, tell us what you're doing now, Ramatu.
Yeah, so I call the year 2021 for me as the year of research, because my previous work, I've always been in the field, in the trenches, implementing policies and driving transformations for organizations. So this particular year, I decided to go back to the drawing board, which is very important. So when you're running projects from time to time, you have to also unplug and go back to the drawing board. And I'm currently carrying out a research on healthcare supply chains in Nigeria, particularly on improving performance throughout the network and improving availability of medicines and healthcare service delivery. And this basically includes hospitals at the national level and at the subnational level. My research was born out of my previous work in healthcare industry and seeing problems that seemed insurmountable. During my previous project, there were so many lessons that we had learned. But what stood out for me was the need to carry out research to determine the deeper system challenges and how to design sustainable solutions. for them. Another interesting aspect is I work with 17 other researchers that are also researching healthcare problems. So I'm not alone. We have a huge cohort of researchers. So it gives me a bird's eye view of the system and how the problems are connected. So some people are working on procurement, others are working on inventory management. There are people working on green logistics, there are people looking at supply chain policies and all that. So my work involves understanding healthcare networks and designing sustainable solutions through supply chain integration to improve availability of medicines and service delivery towards achieving universal health coverage. So basically, I'm looking at how different supply chains can come together and create value for patients by leveraging on their strengths and weaknesses. I'm looking at policies in Nigeria. I'm looking at knowledge sharing, how we can use that, human resources, looking at system visibility, coordination, collaboration, governance, supply chain governance, and even culture, and also enabling technologies and how it all fits into designing an integrated supply chain system that's sustainable and works for all. Yeah. So that's what I'm working on.
That's several plates full that you've described. Yeah. I hope you have some clones helping you, but it sounds like you've got 17 fellow researchers and professionals. That's wonderful. You mentioned technology and of course in the healthcare space. I was reading a few months back about how, as we hit the shortage of masks at different places around the world and other healthcare supplies, I was seeing where I think it was the Veterans Administration here in the States was developing a more practical way of using 3D printing to be prepared to print a bunch of masks when it was needed, rather than kind of stockpile actual inventory. And I thought that was a pretty cool, if that really sticks and becomes a successful approach. I thought that was a pretty neat, innovative learning from the pandemic as it relates to healthcare and healthcare supply chain.
Definitely. I during the pandemic, there was even a young child, I think around 7 to 10 years in the UK, that started printing face shield and distributing to hospitals, NHS, and they were so happy. I think I read that story, which was very, very inspiring. Using 3D printing is really, it's really very a good way of decentralizing manufacturing and bringing it closer to the end user. If we can adopt it, that would be really good. And it's really good for small manufacturing, whereby just in time, depending on the strategy you want to use. That's a really good one. Very good.
Agreed. And I think one of the silver linings of this really tough time we're all fighting through is all those real practical innovative stories, right? I always go back to the automotive companies that have never made respirators, and they found a way to do that in really short order and get them here in the States and elsewhere. And just that can-do attitude that I love across supply chain, whether it's healthcare or automotive or wherever else. So that has been some good news that I know our team has clung to through even the most trying of weeks. So going back to your research, it sounds like you've got a pretty broad scope and a great big team, which is wonderful. Are there a couple of findings that might surprise some folks that you have come across?
So I think first and foremost, we need to understand that there's not much attention given to healthcare supply chain research, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, compared to other industries like automotive and all that. All the researches are happening there, which is really strange considering that health is wealth. We should be researching more of our health than electric vehicles. Like, you have to be healthy to be able to ride those vehicles. So when COVID-19 came and also decimated some of the progress that we had made over the years, we had so many problems during COVID-19, price escalation, supply opportunism. The healthcare system has still not recovered from that. And therefore, if we want to talk about being more resilient, there's need to have research in public healthcare supply chains. So my work found some interesting discoveries, and the first one is on performance management. So one of the first things that stood out for me was that over 75% of our supply chains do not measure their performance, healthcare supply chains now. And you know what they say, that what you don't measure, you can't improve. So performance management is key to the success of any program. You need to know what the success look like? How would you know when you get there? These are questions that cannot be answered without measuring and managing our performance. How do we improve availability of medicine when we don't know the status? How do we give better service delivery when we don't know our current level of operations? These are all very key things that we need to know. So the second finding is also about supply chain knowledge. So I found the lack of basic understanding, knowledge, and awareness on how supply chains work and how to improve performance. I've been in the field for over 6 months now, doing my research work. I've met hundreds of frontline operations staff, and performance measurement sessions are usually insightful and inspiring also. For them, I get a lot of questions. How do we acquire knowledge and basic skills of improving our supply chains? Where to get support for improvement? And I think this is an area that needs urgent attention. You can only give what you have. And if healthcare workers are not empowered with the right skills, the supply chains will not achieve optimum performance. So my research is helping supply chain managers and policymakers understand their current level of performance and how to prioritize their improvement plans and allocate scarce resources towards supply chain excellence.
What a noble mission. I think of large enterprises, and one of the important things, it's tough to do, but one of the very important things that successful large enterprises do is share information and share best practices or share challenges, right? So the enterprise, the whole team can get better rather than have these islands of excellence, right? And part of what I heard and what you just shared is that dissemination of information and education and awareness of what the different aspects of the healthcare system, and feeding these people that are hungry, these professionals that are hungry for knowledge and how to do it better. And it sounds like there's a lot of energy and interest in what you're doing and talking with these hundreds of professionals. Is that right?
Definitely. So usually they would want me to commit to helping to improve the supply chains. And that's very difficult. I'm just one person, but we need to get information out there so that people that can help can know exactly where these supply chains need help. And for me, once somebody says he needs knowledge, I think we have to find a way of getting that knowledge out to these people, because they are the frontline workers. They are the ones that are going to make these medicines available for us. So we have to rally people around to help them. So I hope that my research is going to also help with that, bringing awareness to people, not just sitting back and saying, oh, our supply chains are not working well. Well, the people run the supply chains lack capacity, and then they need these gaps to be filled. So if we can get that to them, then we'll begin to see better output from the supply chains.
So what you're talking about now is a perfect segue. I'll tell you what, awareness and education. I know you're a tireless advocate for especially education, and what you're speaking to is not only do we need to make folks aware of the industry of careers on kind of the career side, right? But also folks are already there. Got to make them aware of new techniques, new best practices, innovations, things that can improve their organization and their supply chains. And then once they're aware, we got to find a way to educate them and deliver the information and deliver the training or whatever it is. So speak more to maybe more broadly about this immense need and critical need, which the pandemic has highlighted, of supply chain awareness and education.
Yeah, so I think sometimes we underestimate the gaps that, so for example, I before going into my research, I also didn't know that these gaps were this huge. So I would have thought everybody or almost everybody running supply chain has some basic knowledge about how to improve your performance, but to find out that you're not even measuring your your operations. You're not measuring. You don't have key performance indicator that you are tracking. You are not tracking your costs. You are not tracking your delivery time. You are not tracking your inventory tons and all that. So it was really an eye opener for me. And I saw that because these were people that were actually doing the work, and I would say they are my colleagues and everything. I really felt for them, and I believe that I'm going to use any opportunity I get, even this person with you today. It's a sort of awareness, telling people what's happening out there. These are areas we need to work on, not just going off to procure medicines. Let's get more medicine. But the people that need to handle these medicines also have some needs. And capacity building, it's really important to invest in that and have people, empower them to be able to do their work appropriately.
The percentage, what was the percentage of healthcare organizations that don't track their KPIs?
So 75% of the ones I'm working with, yes, don't track their KPIs. So it's just like you wake up every day, you go to work, you see patients and you give them medicines. But supply chains are not run like that. And that is why when there's a problem, everything crumbles. You need to know time to delivery. You need to measure those indicators and know when you're falling back on them so that you can quickly take action on that. So performance measurement and management, yeah, we need to begin to institute those in our supply chains.
Rather than managing by anecdote, we need to manage by data and where the real problems, not the most recent experiences or challenges or whatever. Yeah, so that's a huge point. What do you think if you had to answer the following question, what would it be? Are folks not measuring because that it's just a matter of time? Is it cultural? Is there a fear of what the data or the numbers would tell them? Why do you think they don't have the KPIs in place?
I think the main thing that I see is not knowing how to measure them, not knowing the KPIs that are even important. So you can't measure everything. You need to be able to determine the key KPIs you want to measure, maybe 2, 3. You can't measure everything in your supply chain. It's daunting. So the main thing I see is not even knowing what should we be measuring, what matters, because it's not just measuring. What is it that is going to impact on the patient, on the end user at the end of the day? Right. So if they don't know what to measure, that's a problem. You don't know how to measure it, it's also a problem. You also don't know how to manage the information that you have. It's another problem. So it's a whole gamut of problem, not just, okay, I will tell you that, okay, now you measure on time in full. Like for what? If he doesn't understand why he needs to measure on time in full, that is a problem. So there's so many issues. I think it's overall capacity issue, capacity now, not just performance measurement only. I was able to see performance measurement as the end game of that capacity, because when people don't have the capacity, of course, they will not perform well on their job. So that's the main thing.
Well said. I appreciate you sharing, and I really admire your passion. I mean, I think so many folks are going to benefit from these interactions with you, and they're going to hopefully have powerful Eureka moments that they'll look back on a few years as metrics are installed and as they develop a means of not only managing where they are in the current state, but improving and being able to serve more patients and serve more patients better, more effectively. So I appreciate what you're doing there on the front lines. Let's talk about Eureka Moments. I skipped over a question I want to ask you. And then we're going to talk about an upcoming event. So what when you think of what we've all been globally working through over the last 18 months and times I felt like I was having a Eureka moment by the hour. But what's a powerful Eureka moment that you still reflect back on over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so for me, I think that would be my last project, my previous project. And we worked really hard. We worked for over 4 years trying to turn around the system. And I experienced a lot of these problems. I'm also seeing now in the field with other health facilities. So we had to work really hard. We had to work really hard. We had to work really hard. And 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 we had it looks like they share the same problems like we had also over 4 years back. And at the point where I was able to get people to just key into that and be able to recognize that we can make a difference. We own our supply chain and we can do things differently. And when we do things differently, it also impacts on people's life. I think for me, that was one of my Eureka moments where I could see my work really changing people's life. I could see how I was inspiring people, young people coming to me. I still get calls today and people asking, oh, my daughter is going for this course at the university. Do you think she should go for supply chain? And I'm like, well, it depends. So having that happening around me was, it was really humbling and inspiring. Yeah.
Love that. Gosh, a ton of goodness there. What about, let's talk about, I'm going to surprise you with a question here before we talk about this African conference on operations and supply chain management. So I want to surprise you. I'm looking, I pulled up, as I mentioned, I was getting caught up on what you've been up to, and I was over on your LinkedIn profile, and you've got a great picture where you're celebrating an award of excellence from Kaduna State University for bringing supply chain education to not just Kaduna State, but also Nigeria. And so clearly our listeners are hearing your passion on education and awareness and information dissemination, but you're not just talking about it. Clearly you're doing it. And I love that. I love strong action focused leadership. So tell me, before we talk about this event, tell me why that's important to you in terms of this award here. And what makes you tick? What makes you jump out of bed every day to do this stuff?
Yeah, that award, I was really excited when it was a surprise. I didn't even see it coming. I had been working in the trenches, and by the time I looked up, we had done so much. We had dug ourselves in so much. We had done so much in Kaduna State supply chain and also impacted in the Nigeria supply chain space. And so getting that award kind of gingers me. I'm motivated to also do more, having that recognition of that. And also, very recently, I just concluded with a team of people developing the first bachelor's in logistics and supply chain management curriculum for Nigerian universities, which is a big deal.
Wow.
So those are the kind of things that make me jump out of bed every morning, knowing that I'm going to be making difference in the life of future generations. Like, they now have the opportunity to learn supply chain. I didn't have that opportunity, but now you have the choice. You can decide, I want to go into supply chain. And we know how critical supply chain knowledge is to making the world go round. So that keeps me going and not looking back.
I love that. And if I heard you correctly, sounds like you and colleagues had set up the first bachelor's program for supply chain management in Nigeria, and that's huge.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, you didn't get a chance to major or train in supply chain earlier in your career, and now you're changing that and affording the opportunity to the current next generation. So that's powerful stuff, Ramatu.
Yeah.
It made me jump out of bed too.
I feel excited.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
That's a win.
Yeah. So
Big
in
win.
the next 1 or 2 months, the curriculum should be ready, and any university anywhere in Nigeria can begin to run bachelors in logistics and supply chain management.
Wonderful.
It's a big one.
What a huge component of your legacy that would be. Okay. So now let's talk about this upcoming African conference on operations and supply chain management coming up in late July, I believe. You're going to be presenting. So that is really neat, as you should be. You got lots of stuff to share with folks. And I bet you're quite a keynote to hear from. So tell us, what are you going to be presenting on? And what's one thing that you're really looking forward to beyond your presentation at this event?
Yeah, so all roads lead to that supply chain conference, and I'm excited about attending and presenting my research. I'll be networking with researchers from all over Africa and even beyond globally. I'm finding out what cutting edge research is going on in Africa and how we can use that to apply in our healthcare supply chains and make them better. So we're going to be sharing knowledge and learning from other supply chains. And the theme of that conference is apt, smart supply chain management in a dynamic environment. I think we need to talk about that. And it's organized by University of Rwanda and the CUNY Foundation. It's the third conference in a series where researchers, practitioners, and industry experts will convene to discuss supply chain research and innovations in Africa. So yes, join us 29th to 30th July in Kigali, and I'll be presenting the output of my own research and also hoping to learn from other researchers in what they are working on.
Love that. What a great opportunity. I love how you put it, all roads lead to this conference. Sounds like it's a place to be in late July. We'll make sure we include a link in the show notes so folks can click on it and learn more and jump in and participate. All right. So Ramatu, we've worked through, you're so on point with your answers to my questions. We've shot through this interview faster than I had expected. You communicate a lot better than I do. I use 1,000 words when I need 7. And if you need 7 words, you're going to find a way to use 6. And I love that about how we talk here. All right. So I'm going to wrap with this. How can folks, connect with you? I think you and I first connected on LinkedIn in a back and forth. I know you do some great blogging and other work for the Supply Chain Revolution, which is a great podcast and community. How can folks connect with you? How can they learn more from you and compare notes with you after today's interview?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a great place to connect with professionals. That's where we met, and I've met a lot of exciting and great personalities on LinkedIn. So I'm on LinkedIn. If you search for Ramatu Abdulkadir, you'll find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. And if you're interested in research, then you can follow me on ResearchGate and just type in my name, and we'll be able to continue this discussion.
It's just that easy. Wonderful. ResearchGate, that's a new one for me. So folks on Active Research, that's a community built, sounds like, help make connections happen. Hey, learn something new every day. Well, it's an honor and a pleasure to reconnect with you. I really, we need a lot more Ramatus in every industry, but that devotion and passion for finding and then improving things and leaving your mark and empowering others and providing opportunities for others to get better at what they do and to drive change. That's a lot of what I heard here today, which it just reminded me, we got all of that your last appearance with us. And this has been a great refresher and an inspiring refresher. So thanks so much for your time, Ramatu.
Thank you so much, Scott. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Well, we won't make it 8 months next time. We're going to have you back well inside of that time frame. All the best to you and your family. We've been talking with Ramatu Abdulkadir, supply chain professional and researcher and PhD candidate in logistics and supply chain management with Liverpool John Moores University. Thanks so much, Ramatu.
Thank you, Scott.
Folks, if that doesn't have you ready to run through the wall adjacent to wherever you're sitting, then you got to check your pulse. I love our conversations with Ramatu, and better yet, I love the actions that she's taking. All right. That's for us and our team here. It's all about taking action. It's not lip service. It's not enough to talk about it. You got to go out there and do it. And that's what I love Ramatu's approach here. Hopefully you enjoy this conversation as much as I have. Be sure to check out supplychainnow.com for a lot more of conversations just like this one. But most importantly, on behalf of our entire team here at Supply Chain Now, this is Scott Luton wishing you nothing but the best wherever you are. Do good, give forward, be the change, be just like Ramatu. And on that note, we'll see you next time right here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for being a part of our Supply Chain Now community. Check out all of our programming at supplychainnow.com and make sure you subscribe to Supply Chain Now anywhere you listen to podcasts. And follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. See you next time on Supply Chain Now.